Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sally Fletcher, Head of Online Events for SSON, and I'm delighted to be hosting this session today. So today we're talking about a topic that we don't cover enough at SSON, and that's BPOs, looking specifically at can BPOs rescue themselves? We have not one, not two, but three fantastic speakers here today from WNS, Evolute IQ, and AntWorks, our sponsor for today's webinar. Before I hand over to our host for today, Mike Hobday, I wanted to give a few quick announcements on your platform that you see before you. So it's fully customizable. You can zoom in on those slides if you want to see anything closer. We've also got that chat on the right-hand side. So if you have any questions, then our speakers are here live. So please don't hesitate to put those questions in there. And we've reserved a little time at the end to get to those. We've also got that resource center. So underneath where you clicked on the title, you can download the report we mentioned during the webinar and also some other information that AntWorks have kindly provided. So who is our host for today? Mike Hobday is a Chief Revenue Officer for AntWorks. He's responsible for driving revenue growth strategy and lead sales strategy, client acquisition and relationships across US, UK, Ireland, and Europe. I've heard him speak many times on these webinars and he always has some fantastic insight. So we're delighted to welcome him back today for this one. I'm going to hand over to Mike to lead us in this webinar. Over to you.
Thank you, Sally, and good afternoon, everybody. So we're here to address the question, can BPOs save themselves? So you'll be asking yourself, save themselves from what? Well, if I go back in my past, my last role before joining AntWorks, one of my responsibilities was looking after a BPO sales business. And one of the issues we were finding, this is as recent as 3 or 4 years ago, that legacy BPO contracts were maturing. And what we found was our clients were expecting automation and digitization to drive renewal costs down by as much as 40%. And that was a challenge then, and that was a challenge foisted upon us by our then clients. And then fast forward to a year ago, and I was reading a survey by Proxima, a consultant that specializes in support for procurement directors in the middle of the first lockdown. And their survey suggested that a lot of procurement directors were looking at measures to secure operational resilience and finding a large part of their operating model was actually outsourced. And they were asking themselves how much of that is digitized. So I think everyone understands the drive towards digitization. The question, I think, for my colleagues today here on the panel is, can BPO organizations rescue themselves, or do they need help? So let me first introduce Adrian McKnight, who's you can't see because he's in Australia and bandwidth issues preclude us seeing him in all his beauty, but he is there. So he's EVP of Digital Transformation at WNS. And I'm also joined by Chief Executive of Evolute IQ, Samit Gupta. So let me invite Adrian to introduce himself and WNS first.
Thanks, Mike, and my apologies, everyone, for the instability of my connection at the moment, but it's a safer option if I keep my video off. WNS, a leading BPO and professional services company. We operate globally. Increasingly, our capabilities and the profile of work we do are increasingly moving up the value chain to more knowledge-based, deeper domain-based and professional services work, including areas that are a key focus area for us, largest investment area for us actually, in digital transformation. As a company, we're in that sort of leading position because we are working on rapidly transforming ourselves and adapting to that large market shift, which we've all seen happening over recent times. And it's very exciting to be in that position. And we're very excited to obviously to be playing a key role within the industry and leading that transformation and change for the industry, and delivering increasingly complex digital transformation solutions for our customers. One real example of that is the hyperautomation suite that we've been investing in and building, and we've partnered with Evolute IQ and Sumeet to be able to do that in a leading edge orchestrated end-to-end platform. So we're combining our process expertise, that platform capability, and then our deep domain knowledge together to really be able to deliver a leading edge hyperautomation solution. We call it a hyperautomation suite because we tailor that to each industry, which is absolutely critical to deliver the sort of benefits and the new business value required. At WNS, I lead the business transformation group. That's the area that we've brought together around a whole range of functions, including digital transformation, consulting, quality, and our transitions function. So together, those functions allow us to drive a new level of synergies and benefits for our customers, and really to focus on that sort of transformation in the requirements and services that we deliver to market. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. And Sumeet, could you say a little bit about yourself and Evolute IQ?
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sumeet Gupte. I'm the CEO for Evolute IQ based here in London. Evolute IQ, we are a low-code, no-code enablement platform for hyperautomation. We have the full suite from the IBPMS to the AI machine learning, more than 300 odd connectors, the data analytics, workflow, data flow, event flow, all of it, which is inbuilt within the platform. And the vision of the company is to ensure that all the enterprises have accelerated digital transformation. So they accelerate the adoption of automation, and it is end-to-end. And once they have done that, they have the ability as citizen users to drag and drop and build automated applications, which we call hyper apps, much easily. And we've partnered with WNS. We work very closely with AntWorks as well to ensure and enable customers to realize these dreams. Specific to WNS and with Adrian's team, we've been working to build what Adrian described as the automation, the hyperautomation suite for WNS, which is fairly cutting edge and something which we have not yet seen come alive in the BPO industry. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sumeet. So let's move on to address the question. Actually, are BPOs able to rescue themselves, and in fact, do they need to be? And what are the challenges ahead? I think so. If we move, I think Sally, we've got a slide. Here we go. And this is taken from the, for those of you who can see me, this paper, which I think is available in the resources, and it talks to the best place to start, I think, which is with the end customers of the BPO industry and what they're saying about their expectations. So, Adrian, over to you. Is this what you're seeing in the market? And I notice this is 2019. So, has 2020 changed or accelerated expectations and demands?
Yeah, definitely, Mike. This is definitely what we're seeing from our customers globally across all the geographies. The way I think about it is this shift towards digital business and digital solutions and higher levels of business transformation has been happening now for a number of years, but it's definitely accelerated in 2020. There's no doubt. It's the same direction, but it's accelerated. It's sped up because of the necessity of the challenges that 2020 brought. Our customers and their end customers, very importantly, which is the end outcome that we increasingly want to focus on, and the services they're wanting are required to be faster, easier interactions, and that invariably means digital. It means automation, artificial intelligence and cognitive, crucially data and analytics. Data and analytics is the is what drives the smarts across all the other solutions. And of course, something that's often overlooked but is absolutely critical is new ways of working. So, and executing, and agile practices are an absolute key to that. So that's very consistent with this research. And that's one of the reasons why when we think about the industry and the survival of the industry, it's increasingly going to be based around strategic partnerships, because there's no one company and there's no one industry, and there's certainly no BPO player who can deliver fully against all of those dynamic market changes to remain competitive. So when I think of the core question, and when I think about us as a company and also us as an industry, the answer is that no one should be even dreaming of doing it alone, and partnerships and being able to bring different capabilities together in a collaborative way, and then be able to operate using things like agile practices are absolutely crucial for the future.
Can I ask a subsidiary question, Adrian, which I think leads on to this idea of agility? Is obviously the BPO industry, which has been with us for, I guess, 20 years at scale, has always been predicated on labor arbitrage and an operating model, based upon on resources and resource costs. So the shift to digital, is that going to be a challenge, do you think? And are customers expecting outcome style contracts rather than the traditional pricing model?
Definitely, again, Mike, but that shift is something that as an industry we've been adapting to for a number of years now. And the reality is, to have a balanced perspective on that from a whole range of experiences that I've directly had, is we've been eager to move to outcome-based contracts and commercials for some time, and have been pushing some of those viewpoints and approaches. But the reality is it's a different level of sophistication on both sides, and our customer companies need to feel confident in their own positions about what they're signing up to commercially around those outcomes. And that's an issue of maturity that I think is occurring on both sides. So when it comes down to it, there's a need here for the overall maturity of the model to change significantly and to adapt. And that requires, changes across the board, because with some of this, actually the type of information, both as inputs and outputs, that have been able to be generated over time as solid factual data, is now positioning us really well for more mature discussions with our customers around an outcome-based or a transaction-based commercial model. So I think of it in a broader sense as a maturing of, of the business relationship, of the business environment, and that leading us to that position.
Perfect. So, as I look across the market, not just from WNS, but across the sector, there's clearly a lot of investment going into platforms, SaaS solution as a service type models. And Samit, is that what you're seeing? And how does Evolute IQ's platform fit in that landscape?
Just building on from what Adrian just said, Mike, we have seen a lot of BPOs get more aggressive with outcome-based solutions. I think they have always been pushing it for a few years now. But I think the readiness or rather the willingness of the customers is something that I have personally seen in the last year or so since the pandemic. I think that the board is questioning the customers in terms of cost savings and renewals. And so, these models are becoming more and more prevalent. What this has also done is the willingness of the customer as well as the BPOs to accept technology. I think what we are seeing is there are some BPOs, especially with folks like Adrian and technical leadership that BPOs have brought in over the last few years, who are willing to look at new technologies and sort of educate the customers. And I think we're seeing that. One is definitely the pandemic has driven the customers to open up and accept. I think the BPOs are also willing to bring in new leadership who thinks a little differently from the traditional way of, having people and cost arbitrage, but willing to also look at technologies which are not just, existing, but willing to look a little bit forward. And that's where, folks have bet on platforms like Evolute IQ, which, RPA, for example, is a big name. And I think it's the most overused, word in our industry. And I think what I like about how WNS has approached hyperautomation is looked beyond that, right? And looked at the entire end to end and thought of what is the customer journey in the process and how does the entire automation take place. And that's where we've seen adaptability of a platform like ourselves, which does that. And it's also helps the BPOs and the end customers accept that, outcomes can be, they can quantify the outcomes and they can hold us accountable to these outcomes. And we have done a few, proof of values, and we have demonstrated those along with WNS.
Because I mean, it's a huge transformation for the industry as a whole, isn't it? Because we're talking about tens, hundreds of millions of transactions that are being processed on a daily basis, largely by people in the Philippines and across India. So there's a big change coming. So it's a big technology challenge and a very substantial business change challenge. Is that what you're seeing as a digital leader, Adrian?
Yes, and that challenge, it's a good way of putting it about, it's both technical and cultural within our company, but we know that our customers are also struggling with all these changes. I mean, we know they've got their own internal challenges that they're working through about how they become more digital and what that means for their future workforce, just as we do. We've implemented some company-wide programs to digitally upskill our workforce. We take the view that the advancements we're seeing in digital solutions will augment human talent. So we're taking the view and the strategic approach that the way that this plays itself out over the coming 5 to 10 year period is very strongly about better outcomes driven from both people and digital together. And in that approach, we're obviously working heavily to build our internal people capability to be able to support that as well. What we do see is, in terms of digital adoption, that need for cultural and mindset change is absolutely crucial. And that's, both on the customer side as well as on our side, because the digital solutions are there. I like that quote that the future's here today, it's just unevenly distributed. So we can see what the future looks like today if we, reflect on it enough. What we need to do is actually improve the speed at which our companies are adopting that and adapting to it, and also for us as a service provider, that we're able to drive and lead that for our customers, because we don't want to be in the position of being an order taker from our customers. We really want to be in the position where we're leading with new solutions, new thinking, and that is helping to support the customer's strategy and outcomes that they're looking to drive and be competitive in market. And that's a great example about, this hyper-automation suite that Samit and I are both very concentrated on building out as well.
Brilliant. Okay. I think just picking up from that, Sally, we've got another slide if you want to go on to the next one here. Again, drawn from the SSON paper that I showed you earlier. Again, this is 2019 data. So again, I suspect it would be a different, possibly more extreme view today. But I personally hold the view that the 20th century was really about business process management and processes generally, which were designed to organize people. But the 21st century is about data. and particularly unstructured data. And I think that's what's showing here is that a lot of the processes that are outsourced are significantly weighted towards emails and documents, scanned images coming into the big outsourcers and being processed. And I think technology views changed. So Samit, do you want to, as you're focusing on the platform, give your point of view?
Sure. Absolutely, Mike. I mean, I think this 52% is definitely on the lower side. I think we're
woeful.
this is way more than that. I think people have come to the realization. I mean, we've been talking about data for years. I think the quality of data in it and all. The more we work with BPOs and the more we work with larger institutions that have outsourced some of their key functions like F&A and purchasing, what we are seeing is data. I mean, unstructured data is just huge. I mean, I think you and I just spoke about a few weeks ago about somebody having 1 billion documents or some crazy number like that, and I was just completely shocked that there are 1,000 people just reading and trying to put that together. So
you were shocked I fell off my chair.
Yeah, I mean, I was very skeptical, but till it's true, and it is, and it's but as I said, it is becoming more and more apparent that converting unstructured data into structured data, I think, is sort of the fundamental building block of acquiring any of your ambition in terms of the transformation. And I think that the penny is dropped. I think, and I put this to a lot of new people coming in from a different organization into technology and sort of driving that point home that data, the extraction of data is very, very important, because not only do you sort of streamline the process, it's also getting your people to do a higher quality work, and it not only reduces the efficiency, but the productivity increase is significantly much higher. And that is one of the reasons, at least when we are partnering with WNS and going into the market, we are seeing a lot of customers sort of completely accept. And we've been working very closely with you and your team, Mike, in terms of having AntWorks integrate with, we have it integrated with the Evolute IQ platform, so sort of drive that transformation for some of these customers.
So Adrian, do you want to say a few words? Is data important in your or at the center of your digital transformation?
Totally, Mike. I was the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for a large corporate in one of my past lives. And I think without that experience, it would be very difficult for me to be fulfilling, my current role and its objectives. So I think when we think about data, it's always been an important issue, but it's always been seen as, it's been taken for granted, or it's been seen as a transactional piece. And now the understanding of data being actually the crucial element for transformational results, predictive understanding of customer needs and customer intent, being able to understand a full customer view, a customer 360-degree view, and customer requirements that flow from that in a way that services the customer at a level that we couldn't have imagined previously is absolutely critical. So the data element and getting that right, there's a lot of work to do there, but that's where the real X factor or the magic is coming from, is being able to solve the data problems and then put it into the really smart algorithms and the workflow systems, and be able to do that in an end-to-end sense in an orchestrated platform. I mean, that's the future. I can't see another future that is different to that, because that is that holy grail that we've been thinking about how businesses can run at a level that is a paradigm shift from where they've been in the past. And that orchestrated platform with that quality of data coming into it, and the way that it's then processed with algorithms and workflow, and that gives an automated outcome at the other end, whether that be to the end customer or that be to internal business needs. That's got to be the, the gold-plated version that we're all working towards as fast as we can.
One of the things that I'm finding is the extent to which executives, whether it's in the biggest enterprises, their understanding of what technology is able to do in using business language is still some way to go. I mean, the use of words like algorithms. I mean, it was algebra when I was at school. I think most executives would understand that. But I think from one of the reasons that I moved from IBM to AntWorks was a realization that that we'd moved away from structured forms as a basis to get fairly old technology to extract data from images of documents, to using AI for extraction. A lot of people think AI is all about doing complex calculations and discovering new patterns in data, whereas the AntWorks technology, there are others, is able to take completely unstructured documents like insurance documents, free form emails, and extract the data that large numbers of people do on a daily basis today. And I think that opens the way to the downstream automation that you talked about. Is that how you? I see it almost like as the gateway to automation. Is that something that you see as important, Adrian and Samit?
Adrian, would you like to take it?
Well, you start.
Yeah, sorry, Mike.
I ought to be clear, shouldn't I?
No.
I clicked off mute and it suddenly came back on.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, most definitely, Mike. I mean, I have seen in every large corporate that I've both worked in and provided services to, the toggling across multiple systems to be able to look at different documents and connect the requirements across that to fulfill a business outcome or a customer need, to the stage where one extreme example was actually 26 different systems that needed to be accessed with data understood and drawn from to be able to fulfill a customer need. So being able to solve that upfront piece is maybe the most complex piece of the overall requirements, but it's the one that then opens up the ability for all of the smart algorithms and everything else to run off. It's it's that old saying about poor quality data in will lead to poor quality results, regardless of how good your analytics and your algorithms and your workflows may be.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, actually, Adrian and Mike. For us, the entire core, the heart of the Evolute IQ or the EDAT-IQ platform is the metadata. I mean, metadata is the cerebral thing of it. And, I think we're talking personalization, right? If you look at financial services, if you look at insurance companies, they're all going out and saying, hey, give me your stuff. Tell me more about you. Tell me, your preferences. Tell me how you want to conduct business with me. Tell me what channel you want to use. I'm absolutely flexible. So when you have that kind of world sort of evolving and the customers getting used to an experience, which is, the way I want it, how I want it, my way of doing things, it throws data in all sorts of formats, right? You're talking email, you're talking PDF, you're talking Word, you're talking handwritten, you're talking voice. And so taking all of that and really making sense and delivering value back to the customer, I think a lot of enterprises try to solve that problem in silos, right? Extraction of data, and then a process automation, and then there is some amount of process mining, and this, whereas the customer sees it as one simple common journey, which is my experience. And I think that's where extracting quality data, making sense of it, is sort of the core of taking it and then using it across the entire customer journey and giving that end-to-end experience to the customer that the banks or insurance companies or any enterprise is promising, is what is driving this. And I think yeah, without the core quality of data, I think the rest is unimaginable.
So, Sally, do you want to move on to the last slide, again taken from the SSON report? I think, Samit, you were talking about a platform, and I absolutely agree with you. RPA is an incredibly useful tool, but it's one of many. Is this idea of using the right tool for the right purpose, I think is important. And I think the ancillary question, I think probably to Adrian, after you've talked to this slide, Samit, is the extent to which historically I've noted in the BPO industry that that solutions were created tailored to individual clients. So you could have different technologies used in the same BPO organization, delivering the same solution, but using different technologies. So as we scale up digitization, do we need to standardize? So this, I'll leave both those points. So perhaps, Samit, you could kick off on that.
So, I would love to, answer this, especially with Adrian being on the call. We have really, we're very excited the way WNS has approached this. I mean, that's exactly the vision that they're working with, which is, leveraging the entire technology, both the extraction piece and, the whole orchestration, the low code, no code, and then empowering the customers to go and, improve on the whole automation piece. And the way they have approached, and we're very, very proud to be part of that journey, is taking the problem, building a core product or a core solution, and in a way that it can be taken to multiple other customers. There is an element of customization because all customers do have that, but I think predominantly it is something which is great IP that WNS is building on its own. And I think that's the core, Mike, because you cannot solve this problem in silos, because you cannot say that I'm solving your problem by technology and then build a center of excellence for RPA and then a center of excellence for AI and then a center of, so you're just transferring, the budget from a BPO into a system integrator, and you're essentially spending actually same or more amounts of money. So yeah, that's what that's my point of view.
Adrian?
Yeah, I fully agree with Samit. I think Samit and I have talked a little bit before about the concept of enterprise automation solutions. I think that, just to be balanced here, every business, every successful business has found a way to drive a competitive position that supports their ability in market, to be successful. And the solutions that we bring are definitely have the ability for leveraging and reuse across customers and to some degree across industries, but domain focus is absolutely crucial to industry success. There's no doubt in the world about that. But each company will have its own competitive aspects that it will want to drive through the platform and through the solution and through the digital transformation. And I think that's really crucial in how we think about providing these to customers. Is if we go the vanilla flavor route, I think we underestimate both the requirements from the customer side as well as what's required to be competitive in industry. And that's why we have a strong focus on customer co-creation, understanding the internal environment of the customer, including things like the quality of data and the degree of work that's already been done in the data governance and data structuring space, as well as other core systems, as well as the way that they interact with their customers and what the value proposition is they bring to market and to their customers, to be able to build all of those things into the platform and the digital transformation solution, so that it really meets their needs and it keeps those competitive edges that they currently have in the solution that it builds as well. So, so that's just the bit of extra that I bring. The only other thing I'd say is I fully couldn't agree more with Samit around the comment about it's the integration. All of these capabilities are great, but as standalone capabilities, they only move the dial marginally. Actually, it's the integration of these capabilities which shifts the dial significantly. And that's what particularly end-to-end digital transformation solutions and things like the hyperautomation suite actually allows companies to be able to really achieve.
Yeah. Certainly, I've always been a big fan of integrate a solution once and then go and sell the solution many times. Is a great benefit to everyone, I think. So we're pretty much out of time because we want to leave some time for questions. And I think we've done very well with your Wi-Fi, Adrian. Before we go, I always like to ask, was there a question that I didn't ask that you thought we should have covered that you'd like to close with?
Mike, I was very happy with those questions. Thanks. That's been a great discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Well, we're delighted to have you join us. And when this goes out, obviously it'll be about 1 a.m. in the morning your time in Brisbane. So we'll let you sleep, and Samit and I will go on and take questions from the audience. So back to you, Sally.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It was really interesting to hear all the stuff you talked about with hyper automation and innovation and really bridging that gap for data readiness. So it's super cool to see all the answers you have around that, because it's something that our SSON members always ask about. As Mike and Samit said, it is question time now. So pop all of your questions into the Q&A box on the right-hand side, and we'll take as many of those as possible.